Hello, everyone. To begin with, I want to thank Protochips for organizing this very good webinar. I have this chance to present our recent work on in-situ observation and practical engineering of reaction kinetics in lithium-oxygen battery. I'm Yifei Yuan from Wenzhou University in China. This was the work I collaborated with Professor Reza Shabazan Yasser at UIC and also at Argonne National Laboratories a couple of years ago. It basically covers two works. So why we focus on lithium-oxygen battery? This battery system offers a very high energy density, making this battery system outstanding among all the competitive candidates in rechargeable battery systems. And for the lithium-oxygen battery on the cathode side, we basically have a porous carbon material loaded with different metal catalyzed. And if we take a closer look at the reaction, it is basically a reversible reaction between lithium ions oxygen molecules and the lithium peroxide. So during discharge process, it is the formation of the lithium peroxide. We call it a ORR process, oxygen reduction reaction. And on the charge process, which is basically the decomposition of lithium peroxide to give lithium ions and oxygen molecules. So the reaction is pretty very simple, but when we take a closer look at the discharge curves, we see that there is a huge over potential during both charge and discharge process. So in our work, we try to understand the origins of this sluggish reaction kinetics using in situ electrochemical liquid TEM. And based on the fundamental understanding from the in situ TEM study, we further came up with different strategies to modify the catalyzed surface to tune the reaction kinetics to achieve a better reaction kinetics. So now in both the UIC group and also my current group at Wenzhou University, we have developed different in situ TEM platforms to study battery materials. So here I will emphasize the use of a liquid cell, which is capable for battery cycling studies. So here we use the Protochips Poseidon 500 to conduct the in situ study. So this is the video from the company's website. I will just simply click the video to play. So you can watch the video to understand the assembly process of this holder, the sample tip region. And meanwhile, I will introduce on the right side how we customize the design of the holder tips to satisfy our experimental need. So on the in figure B, so on the working electrode, which is basically the current collector of our working electrode, this is our imaging area. We will shoot electron beam through this electron transparent window to observe the working electrode. And on the counter electrode, we have the lithium cobalt oxide, which we prepared using the photolithography and lift-off techniques to prepare a thin film deposition as the lithium source. So during discharge process, the lithium cobalt oxide will provide lithium source to diffuse into the working electrode area to react with oxygen. So we introduce oxygen by flowing oxygen-rich electrolyte, which is a TJDME, and it carries enough oxygen to make sure that the lithium ions can react with oxygen to mimic the real lithium oxygen reaction environment. So we use a 500 spacer between two silicon chips, and we also well control the electron dose rate to make sure that electron has very minimized effect on the reactions. So this is the discharge process. This is a very quick video. It shows the growth of the lithium peroxide on the surface of the current collectors. And here we observe two different growth modes for lithium peroxide. The one green mode is the growth of lithium peroxide exactly on the surface of the current collector, which is indicated by the yellow arrow here. And if we take a look at the growth of this particle, it can basically be described by a direct direct reaction between lithium, oxygen, and the electrons to form a lithium peroxide nanoparticles. However, we do observe a second very interesting growth mode, which is basically for the particle isolated in the electrolyte, as indicated by the white arrow. So this particle growth, it doesn't have electron supply from the current collector because it is isolated within the electrolyte. So in this case, we came up with a theory to explain this. So the first, we have oxygen to get 1 electron from the current collector to become superoxygen ions, and these superoxygen ions, given enough time, it will diffuse into the nearby electrolyte region. When the concentration of the superoxygen ions reach a value, it will react with the lithium ions to give a lithium peroxide plus oxygen molecule. So as you can see, the difference is that on the second step, there is no electrons transfer involved for the outside circuit current. So that means this reaction is a non-Faradic reaction. So it is basically, we call it a disproportionation reaction, and it doesn't contribute for any current. So this theory can well explain the growth of the lithium peroxide isolate in the electrolyte. So we further analyze the growth kinetics of these two growth modes. For the first one and for the second one, they both show a similar relationship between the radius of the particle r and also the growth time t in seconds. And this, so the relationship is, so the radius r is related to the cubic root of the time. So that means that implies that the growth kinetics is more dominated by the ionic diffusion. So on the one that is, on the current collector surface, so the only ionic species that present is the diffusion of lithium ions from the electrolyte to the surface of the current collector. So we believe this is the growth, the limiting factor for this reaction. For the second case, where the growth of the particles is isolated within the electrolyte, the only ionic species that we could imagine is the superoxygen ionized diffusion, which is the diffusion from the current collector to the particle on the within the electrolyte. So it is the diffusion of these superoxygen ions that limits the overall reaction kinetics. And on the third process, which is the decomposition of the lithium peroxide, we also observe the reverse process of these two growth modes. And so this is the video. The video looks a little bit ugly, but we make it beautiful by using some tricks. So on the right side, we show its color is more colorful, right? And you can see the orange arrow indicated particles, which is the lithium peroxide previously grew on the surface of the current collector. And we also have the black arrow indicated particle, that is the lithium peroxide previously growing within the electrolyte. And for the one attached to the surface, its decomposition always starts from the contacting surface, the interface between the current collector and the particles, right? You see how it decomposes, start from the interface region and gradually decompose all of the particle bulk. So this can be easily expressed using this a very straightforward, it's a reverse reaction for the formation of lithium peroxide. So it's the lithium peroxide decomposed to the lithium ions, electrons, and also the oxygen molecules. So in this process, because the decomposition starts at the interface between the current collector and the particles, so we believe the conduction of the electrons from the lithium peroxide into the current collector is the limiting factor of the reaction kinetics. For the one isolated within the electrolyte, indicated by the black arrow, when interesting phenomenon is that we see the decomposition region. The initial decomposition region is always to be the place directly facing to the current collector. That means the first decomposition region has the shortest distance to the current collector, right? You see how the decomposition region is start from the region that is closer to the current collector, while the farther region is not that active. So we believe there is some ionic transport during this long distance situation that controls the decomposition of the lithium peroxide. So we reasonably propose that the lithium peroxide will first go through this comproportionation reaction, which is the reverse reaction for the disproportionation reaction during the discharge process, and it gives a superoxygen ionized. And the second step is very critical. It requires time for the superoxygen ionized to diffuse back to the current collectors to get electrons. So in this process, if we have a lot of superoxygen ionized concentrated surrounding the lithium peroxide particle that is being decomposed, that will significantly suppress the decomposition of this particle. So that is why we believe the quick diffusion of the superoxygen ions from the electrolyte into the surface of the current collector, where it can get an electron to be oxidized, is the limiting factor. So to summarize our in-situ observation, we identified that the lithium superoxide, or the superoxygen ions, is the key reaction intermediate product during both ORR and OER process, and it is the diffusion of the superoxygen ions that actually controls the reaction kinetics that deserves more consideration in the future research. And actually, this leads us to consider how we can control the sensitivity of the superoxygen ions of the of different catalyzed surface, so as to regulate the kinetics. So what we did is we use a manganese oxide catalyst, which is well known for the metal oxygen battery catalysis. So this part, because this is the flash talk, I will just speed up to cover the key points here. So we designed this particle surface to be faceted, and we have different crystal planes exposed as the outermost surface, controlling the synthesis procedures, right? So we use these two different morphologies, two different catalysts with the different morphologies. This ML2 catalyst as the cathode catalyst, and we characterize their discharge product morphology after ORR, after discharge process, and we observe that on the one that's on the catalyst that is more like a rod-like structure, which is reaching the 100 surface. The discharge product, the lithium peroxide, is more like the thin film-like structure, while for the manganese oxide, which has this cubic structure, it has which is reaching the 111 surface. Its discharge product is more like the toroid structure. So this actually, we refer to the literature, the thin film-like product and the toroid-like products indicate two different reaction mechanisms. One is the surface reaction mechanisms, one is the solution reaction mechanisms. So here we summarize these two different mechanisms achieved. We can control we can switch these two mechanisms by controlling the facet structure of our manganese oxide catalyst. On the 100 surface, which it has a strong adsorption capability to the superoxygen ions, it will tightly bond the as formed lithium superoxide on the surface of the 100, which means on the next stage where it can be further reduced to the lithium peroxide that is uniformly covered on the surface of the 100. But for the 111 surface, surface, it has a weak adsorption capability to superoxygen ionize. So when the intermediate is formed, it more prefers to diffuse into the electrolyte, and when it reaches to a relatively high concentration, it will precipitate to form lithium peroxide. And in this situation, the discharge product is more like toroid structure. So we can, using this study, we show that how we can obtain a very fundamental understanding of the battery reaction kinetics using in situ transmission electron microscopy, and how we can root it on this fundamental understanding to further design material structure, surface structures to control the reaction kinetics using different strategies. So to end up, I want to acknowledge my previous UIC group, the Nano Engineering Lab at UIC, which is led by Professor Reza Shabazon Yazır. It gave me a lot of support to carry out this research. And also, I want to take this opportunity to advertise my current research group at Wenzhou University in China. So we target small, but we plan big. We use a microscopic observation method to understand material science, and based on the fundamental understanding to more efficiently design advanced energy materials. So in our group now, we have advanced high resolution TEMs. We also, our group is now equipped with different in situ platforms like the thermoelectric in situ experiment, the scanning tunneling microscope, and also the liquid electrochemistry, which we will get it pretty soon. And finally, I also want to advertise our, the prestige journal Carbon Energy, which is established by widely collaborating with our Wenzhou University, and this is a high-level journal with an impact factor of about 21, and it's received. It focused on interdisciplinary area between carbon and energy, mostly for the carbon neutralizations. So we are welcoming all the submission of high-level research works from all over the world. And that's my presentation. Thank you.